On October 21, 1978, a young pilot named Frederick Valentich took off from Melbourne, Australia, in a small Cessna aircraft. He was only 20 years old, and the flight was supposed to be routine. He planned to fly across the Bass Strait, the stretch of water between mainland Australia and Tasmania. The trip should have taken a little over an hour. Instead, it became one of the strangest unsolved aviation mysteries in history. Frederick was an ambitious pilot who wanted to build a future in aviation. He had around 150 hours of flying experience, which meant he was still relatively inexperienced, especially for night flying over open water. Even in good weather, that kind of flight can be difficult. Over dark ocean, pilots can lose the horizon, misjudge lights, and become disoriented very quickly. That night, the weather was considered generally clear. There were no major storms reported. Nothing seemed unusual before takeoff. But about 40 minutes into the flight, Frederick contacted Melbourne Air Traffic Control with a strange question. He asked if there was any known aircraft below 5,000 feet in his area. The controller answered clearly, no, there was no known traffic nearby. But Frederick insisted he could see something above him. At first, he described it as a large aircraft with bright lights. That alone might not sound too alarming. Lights in the sky can be difficult to identify, especially at night. But as the conversation continued, Frederick's description became more unsettling. He said the object was moving at high speed. He said it was shiny, metallic, and long in shape. He also mentioned a green light. Then he said the object appeared to be circling above him. The air traffic controller remained calm. He repeated that there was no known aircraft in the area. Frederick continued reporting what he saw. At one point, he said the object seemed to be playing some sort of game, flying over him 2 or 3 times at a time. Then came his final and most famous words. It is not an aircraft. After that, the radio transmission was interrupted by about 17 seconds of strange metallic scraping or grinding noise. Then the signal ended. That was the last time anyone ever heard from Frederick Valentich. A search began almost immediately. Aircraft and boats searched the Bass Strait for signs of crash. They looked for wreckage, oil, floating debris, anything that might explain what had happened. But nothing conclusive was found. No confirmed remains of the aircraft. No body. No clear evidence that could fully explain the disappearance. That lack of evidence is one of the main reasons this case became so famous. In many aviation accidents, at least some wreckage is eventually discovered. In this case, there was almost nothing. The ocean simply gave no answers. So what happened that night? The most common explanation is pilot disorientation. This is the theory most aviation experts consider the most likely. Flying at night over dark water can be extremely dangerous, especially for a young pilot with limited experience. Without a clear horizon, a pilot can lose spatial awareness and begin turning or descending without realizing it. If that happened, Frederick may have accidentally flown into the ocean. Some investigators also believe the unknown object may have been a bright planet, a star, or even his own lights reflected at strange angles while he was turning. In a confused state, he may have believed something was circling him when he was actually circling beneath a fixed light in the sky. This theory makes sense. It fits known aviation accidents and explains why a relatively inexperienced pilot might report unusual things. But it does not answer every question. The biggest unanswered detail is the final radio noise. The metallic scraping sound has never been fully explained. Some say it may have been interference or sound distortion caused by the aircraft during a loss of control. Others argue that it does not sound like a normal crash sequence. Either way, it remains part of what makes the case feel so disturbing. Another theory is mechanical failure. Perhaps there was a serious problem with the aircraft, and while trying to deal with it, Frederick misinterpreted lights outside the cockpit. Stress, confusion, and a failing aircraft could have combined to create a very strange final conversation. But again, there is no definitive proof. And then there is the theory that made the case famous far beyond aviation circles, that Frederick encountered something truly unknown. This is the theory that captured the public imagination. A pilot reports a metallic object with lights, says it is circling him, then calmly says it is not an aircraft before disappearing forever. It sounds almost unreal, but despite how often this theory is discussed, there is still no evidence strong enough to prove that anything extraordinary happened. No confirmed radar data proved the presence of another object. No wreckage was recovered that could support a more dramatic explanation. No final answer ever came. That is what makes this mystery so powerful. There are reasonable explanations, and some of them are convincing, but none of them completely remove the strange feeling left by the final transmission. Frederick did not sound like someone telling a joke. He did not sound theatrical. He sounded confused, focused, and increasingly uncertain about what he was seeing. More than 40 years later, Frederick Valentich has never been found. His aircraft has never been conclusively recovered. The official investigation could not determine the cause of the disappearance. Whether the answer was disorientation, mechanical failure, visual illusion, or something still unexplained, the mystery remains. And maybe that is why people still talk about this case today. Not because it clearly proves anything impossible, but because it leaves just enough unanswered to stay in a mind. A young pilot, a dark stretch of ocean, a final radio call, 5 unforgettable words. It is not an aircraft. Somewhere over the Bass Strait, a signal ended, and one of the most haunting aviation mysteries in history began. If you want more real mysteries like this, subscribe to Shadow Files, because some stories end with answers, and some end with silence.